Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us in the third of our AIA New Jersey TAP Technology and Architectural Practice Summer Lecture Series. As usual, we are starting with the lecture poster. And as many of you know, we get a lot of the same attendees every week. We have had already Hillary Sample on June 9th and Maria Ibanez and Simon Kim last Tuesday on June 16th. Today, we are very happy to have a close colleague of mine, Nicole Robertson, who will be lecturing on some very interesting kind of takes on adaptive reuse that she's been working on. Before I introduce Nicole, I'd just like to point everyone out to the remaining lectures in our series. We are taking a few-week break around the 4th of July holiday. We will be back on Wednesday, July 15th. So that's 3 weeks from today, I think, or something like that. With a colleague named Shajay Bhushan. Some of you may know Shajay. He's an associate director at Zaha Hadid Architects, giving a lecture called Tectonism and Agentic AI. So this is the kind of AI lecture that we'll be hearing this summer. And then we will conclude on Tuesday, July 23rd, with my colleague from Penn, Dorit Aviv, who directs something called the Thermal Architecture Lab at Penn, and she will be giving a lecture called Cooling as Urban Infrastructure. So hopefully you'll agree we are trying to touch a lot of bases with TAP this summer, and you've been enjoying the lecture series. So with that, I will introduce my colleague, Nicole Robertson. Nicole is a founding partner at GRO Architects. The work of the practice privileges the integration of emerging technologies to respond to client needs, project complexity, and collaboration between disciplines. GRO has received numerous awards and recognitions, including several from AIA New Jersey recently and local chapters over the last few years. This includes Nest Micro Housing, a 122-unit micro housing project in Jersey City she will touch on today. GRO was invited to exhibit at the 2025 Venice Biennale in the Space-Time Existence exhibition, sponsored and organized by the European Cultural Council, where the firm displayed recent housing work that engaged new typologies, including microhousing, novel off-site construction technologies, as well as the adaptive reuse of under-tenanted buildings. And this is something, as I suggested, Nicole will focus on today. She recently served as a juror for the Providence Preservation Awards in Rhode Island in 2024, bringing her experience in adaptive reuse and addition to historic structures. In addition to the practice, Nicole has an established record of teaching. She was the emerging architect visiting assistant professor at Barnard College in 2007, where she taught design studios and advanced seminars with a focus on digital fabrication and technology all the way through 2015. Prior to joining the faculty at Barnard, she taught as an assistant professor in the School of Architecture at Syracuse University and has also taught graduate representation and introductory design studios at both Columbia and Parsons. Prior to forming GRO, she was a project designer at Greglin Form in Los Angeles and later a senior designer at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill in New York, where she worked on several large-scale transportation and infrastructural projects. Nicole holds a Bachelor of Arts from Princeton University and a Master of Architecture from the University of California, Los Angeles. She is a LEED accredited professional and licensed architect in New York and New Jersey. Please join me in welcoming Nicole for the third 2026 TAP Summer Lecture. And I'll stop my share, and Nick, you can go ahead and start yours, and I will turn my camera off once everything is started.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Rich, for your introduction. That was very comprehensive. And thank you, AIA New Jersey, for inviting me to speak today and share some of our projects. And thank you, everyone, for attending on a summer day. Really appreciate it. So the title of our talk is Impossible Density, Futures Collide. Density serves as the impetus for flexible and sustainable living while promoting community development in a series of projects in the greater New York City metro area. The forces that are shaping architecture and its practice in the late 20th and 21st centuries are external to the discipline. These include technological, ecological, economic, and sociocultural factors. These have allowed us to focus our work in three key areas, particularly with respect to urban development and mixed-use housing. New housing typologies, particularly micro-housing, new construction technologies, including modular and off-site assembly, and thirdly, adaptive reuse of underutilized urban buildings or the insertion of urban infill to create housing or associated programs that support dense communities. I'm going to begin the talk with a brief look at the evolution of these ideas in our office and how we developed an unexpected but necessary interest in the third category in particular, adaptive reuse, which will ultimately be the focus of this talk. This is an early project that we called Best Pedestrian Route. It was a prototype to replace the typical scaffolding seen on downtown construction sites in 2007. Prefabricated CNC cut wood components were assembled to create a temporary and playful walkway to protect and guide pedestrians. Here we functioned as designers, fabricators, and assemblers. Incidentally, this glorified sidewalk shed was assembled on the vacant ground of what would become the Fulton Transit Center, which incidentally I had worked at SOM on the competition for that project, which we did not win, but things kind of came full circle as we were assembling Best Pedestrian Route on that very site. And you can see in this photo the ornate tile floors of the previous structure, which had been demolished, which I believe was the Child's Restaurant building. Our project, Best Pedestrian Route, was an installation, temporary in nature, built adjacent to the Corbin Building, which is a famous historic landmark at the corner of Broadway and John Street in Lower Manhattan. This photo showcases the building prior to its restoration. It actually looks quite different now as the building facade was totally restored and Handsome Man is no longer there. Best Pedestrian Route was very popular amongst tourists and office workers and skateboarders alike. Our project for Pretty Fab was envisioned as a prototype for sustainable urban infill housing, executed in precast insulated concrete panels for a client who ironically wanted to live off-grid while in the heart of Jersey City in 2009. We thought this impossible, but we were excited to take on the challenge and utilized manufacturing and somewhat non-standard construction systems to facilitate what was a novel project for us. We utilized standardized precast panel system called Superior Wall with some customization and adaptation in the factory to create a super modest 1,200 square foot house for this client at an extremely low cost. A small 260 square foot PV system that is still in use to this day produces more power than is needed for the house, and the owner receives a rebate check every month. Apologies for the crude video, but I still think it's cool to see how this house, the panels were assembled in just 3 days on site, which proved to us that this was possible. In fact, the Best Pedestrian Route project also took 3 days, although it was much smaller in scale. But this was very inspiring to us and reaffirmed our interest in prefabrication and housing. Photos of the completed project in 2009. And this led to our work at Jackson Green, which was an affordable housing project located in the MLK Hub district of Jersey City, which is adjacent now to the home of the construction office. right in the center of Jersey City. It was 22 single-family attached affordable townhomes that were constructed of wood modular boxes in 2014. And the completed project just around the corner from the MLK Hub. Shortly after this, at Moxie over on Academy Street, we realized the construction of Moxie with 79 compact studio units. The project was actually built during the pandemic, so an instance where modular construction in this case really did save time, whereas perhaps in Jackson Green it didn't, but here it really did because we were able to keep construction moving off-site in the factory and minimize on-site presence. It was our project around the corner from Moxie at 190 Academy Street, Nest Micro Housing, where our interest in density, sustainable living, and prefabrication technologies converged. Nest Micro Housing is a 38,000 square foot community containing 122 micro units. It is a progressive housing alternative for individuals seeking privacy, modern amenities, and economy while liberating them from stuff. Stuff in the sense of, furniture that you don't need or extra accessories and things. Nest's 220 square foot units are designed to be highly efficient with flexible furnishings, where different configurations for living, dining, or sleeping, and variations in between are possible. Residents enter the building through a cafe, which uniquely serves as a lounge and co-working space after building hours, and large amenity spaces, including a centrally located gym and game room, offer a kind of contrast to the small living spaces of the units themselves. And they promote community interaction and complement the compact units. Residents have access to a roof deck that provides views of Jersey City and Manhattan beyond. While micro housing is not a new concept, we were pushing the limits of extremely small living in this project. The floor plan on the right is the second floor plan, which shows how the micro units, 220 square feet in area, encircle a central space where we've located the building core and amenity spaces, which don't require light and air. But the units are packed densely on the plan. And on the left-hand side is the ground floor plan, which really shows how we had to work with a limited amount of rock excavation and defined the perimeter of the ground floor. So with this limited floor area, we located, first you can see the cafe entrance, which was an unusual feature to the project, and then building amenities such as a very large bike storage room and mail and package services, and as well as a laundry room that served as a kind of social space, bringing the community together. On the third floor, you can see 20 micro units stacked front and back. And even on this floor, there's an equal size enclosed private outdoor space that accompanies those units, as large as the unit itself, if not larger. And then the typical floors 4 through 6, shows how the units are tightly packed efficiently on double loaded corridors. The design of the micro unit was really a focus of our work and required intense study and collaboration really with the New Jersey DCA as we look to minimize the amount of living space and still comply with code. And of course, it had to be an ADA accessible unit. So all of the units are ADA accessible, of course. And what was key to this was organizing the unit into a wet and dry zone and deconstructing the typical ADA bathroom so that we were really looking at each of the fixtures of the bathroom individually complying with required clearances. But the entrance is really through this wet zone from the common corridor into the unit space. And then the dry zone, which is closer to the windows, is where we've located the fold-down bed and sofa components. And between these two spaces, wet and dry zone, the sink of the bathroom and the sink of the kitchen sort of walk that line between. So it's a very small space, but through flexible furnishings and the organization of the space, we were really able to make it work as a single occupancy unit. That was a really key factor in the design of this space. Another key factor was the window boxes, which extended the space into into the city and beyond, and served as an additional space to sit. This was a computer rendering actually, once the unit was completed, that showed the extent of different elements that were captured in the space and the flexibility. We were able to come up with at least 5 transformations that we could create, pulling the desk down from the wall to accommodate working. The bed folds out over the sofa. The living area table has 3 positions to be used during the day. And so by expanding the functionality of the furnishings, we were able to kind of increase the perception of the space. So in reality, yes, it's small, but through the flexibility of the furnishings, the sense of the space feels larger. This is an image cut through our Revit model very early on when we were initially conceiving of this as a concrete building. Later, we had aspirations of building this as a modular structure, carrying forward our work on prior projects, but ultimately it was constructed using a prefabricated frame wall system. And this image on the left shows the window boxes as they were completed, making a really strong geometric statement on the facade, and also functioning on the right, showing how the window boxes work to control light and shade. And again, the window boxes clad in aluminum finish make a really strong presence on the street. The inside of the units, this is an image looking back towards the front door of Unit 708, which we had some fun with the graphics, using super graphics to kind of celebrate the small size of the units, but then announcing them in a large way on the front of the doors. And you can see here the wet zone is defined by the black slate tile, and then the countertop, the wood countertop actually mediates between the wet and dry zone, with the sink of the bathroom per se and the kitchen adjacent to one another, but sharing a counter. And then the view looking out Unit 708 towards Jersey City, the surrounding community of Jersey City. And in this instance, this photo is showing the sofa and the dining table set for 2. So our single occupant has invited a guest for the evening. And then the bed can be folded down, the table slides underneath, and the window seat also is a great place to lounge and read. And so the completed project for 190 Academy, or Nest Microhousing, was the first and really meant to be a kind of prototype for microhousing. That was the kind of interest that our client had. And we see in this facade a kind of iconic expression of this idea of individual window boxes, many individuals in the building, but forming a kind of unified geometric logic in a grid form that really speaks to how they come together in the building, and also how they relate to Jersey City beyond. So this is now moving into the adaptive reuse component of this talk, which was really interesting. That our client actually came to us with a new challenge after we completed Nest, which was a very challenging project that took a solid 8 years for us to complete and realize. due in part to the pandemic and other things, change in contractor complexities like that. But our client was really undeterred and wanted to pursue the Nest brand in a new location. And what was really fascinating about this is rather than look for a new site that suited their needs, he actually was looking for a building that would meet the requirements of micro housing and everything that we learned in new construction. How could we translate this to adapting an existing building? And the first step of that for the client was to look around for what was available. And he came to us with this site in which perhaps many of you know, in Newark, located right across from Newark Penn Station, which really embodied a lot of the really important aspects of the Nest Jersey City project. In that project, we had a limited zoning envelope, but unlimited density. We were not required to provide any parking for cars. We provided a huge bike room, but the proximity to public transportation was so critical to the success of that project, and the underlying kind of objective and goal of the city in the zoning for this area was really a sustainable agenda for minimizing the use of cars and maximizing public transportation. So that's why this site, the existing DoubleTree or Hilton hotel adjacent to Newark Penn Station, was of particular interest to our client. Penn Station being an important rail station on the East Coast that connects to Newark Penn Station, AirTrain to Newark Airport. It really is a regional hub. And for that reason, at the scale of, the region and city, this was an ideal location. At the scale of the building, this is a Victor Gruen architect from created this visionary project as part of the Gateway project, completed in 1971, constructed of cast in place concrete with a very strong brutalist aesthetic. And I think what attracted our client to this project also is that in a way it aligned aesthetically with what we had done at Nest Jersey City, which is really a kind of interesting provocation. This aerial photo shows the location of this existing hotel with a pool that's been decommissioned, but this hotel and its proximity to Newark Penn Station. And Victor Gruen here with a image of a model that was created in 1961 of the Gateway project. It was originally conceived as a commercial center linked to this significant regional transportation hub. So a real kind of visionary project. And I think this image kind of captures it all in terms of the proximity to Penn Station and then this new structure going up. So this is this project is in very early stages of development, but what we're looking at is how, well, there's many projects right now in which office buildings are being converted into residential to kind of address the housing crisis, which is, on the East Coast and throughout the US. But in this instance, our client is looking at perhaps a typology of the hotel, which is in a way more closely suited to the needs of housing and micro housing in particular, in that the design of the floor plate here and the organization of amenities is more aligned with what we were doing in our micro housing project. So this is the ground level, street level here, just showing what will occur with the main entrance, maintaining retail at the base shaded in blue, but a street level lobby, which then by escalator provides access up to a second floor lobby. But on this level, the ballroom will be converted into recreational spaces, pickleball, pool tables, a gym, all of the amenities that we had And this is a zoomed in view of that. So amenities are proportionally much greater than what you would find in a typical kind of multifamily structure with 264 dwelling units. This is a lot of amenity space. And on the second floor, we see the bridge connection to Newark Penn Station. And the amenities on this level, again, doing something innovative similar to what we did at Newark at Jersey City Nesk, where we're entering through a co-working space and lounge into the residential building. And then we have other amenities supporting the project residents above. So this is a floor plan of the existing hotel showing 34 rooms on each floor. Only 4% of them are required to be ADA accessible. So that was really the challenge for us. So in some sense, the exterior envelope, the precast or the cast in place concrete envelope could stay, but the internal organization of the corridors and units had to be adjusted. So we've looked at how we can basically keep as much as possible of the existing building and existing demising walls, exterior facade, even the location of plumbing, but that we need to remove and alter the corridors and bathrooms so that the whole building can be made ADA accessible, which we've done with a kind of initial schematic layout of how this could work in the units. Again, like really prioritizing how we could keep as much as possible of plumbing risers and existing walls to minimize the amount of disruption and really the amount of material waste, the cost of the project, all of these factors that are driving more and more developers towards adaptive reuse as a solution. And this is a quick sketch of what those unit interiors might look like. You can see that they're a little larger than our project at Nest, which was only 220 square feet. These are a little bit larger, closer to 300 square feet with a full ADA bathroom enclosed. So the project, our thinking on microhousing has evolved in a way since that project. And we're looking forward to continuing on this one. This takes me to the next project I'll talk about is a project that we did, a restoration to an existing warehouse in Jersey City, which was for the A&P Grocery, which was a center of innovation in 1908. It was the first commercial bakery equipped with horse ramps, a loading dock for delivery trucks, on-site refrigeration, and an early reinforced concrete industrial warehouse. At the time, it was a building that enabled the future of the American grocery store. This is an image of the completed project, which we finished in 2005. The project revitalized the building by rethinking the circulation, centralizing the stairs and elevator core, and connecting the offset floor levels. The addition was conceived as visually light, clean lined, and really set in contrast with the heavy masonry of the historic warehouse building that it connected. If we look back to 2017, this is what the building looked like. Since the closure of the A&P Bakery in 1923, or sorry, it was closed in the early 80s due to a corporate restructuring. The building was vacant for a while. It had a few tenants, most notably the Acadia Scenery Company, which made large-scale scenery for Broadway productions, occupied much of the building, which was well suited to what they were building inside. And later it was also home to the civil engineering firm who you may know, Dresner Robin, who occupied, that was the second floor, and they actually worked with us on this project to restore and add to this building. But much of the building was vacant for years and had fallen into disrepair when we were asked to take a look at it. It was an eyesore for sure in the neighborhood, but also beloved, a yellow warehouse that anchored the powerhouse arts district that surrounds. This is a view from the corner of Warren and First Streets, which shows the condition of the facade, the existing loading dock, and the existing canopy. So the building was in pretty rough shape, but we started the project with a laser scan of the whole building, and we were given a point cloud, which then was converted into a Revit model, which served as the basis for our work. And it was really essential because the building is so nuanced. You can kind of get a hint of it from the exterior, but actually, if I just go back, you'll see that the all of the floors are actually out of level between the two buildings. They're offset from one another. So the gray and red building is those floors are all on one kind of logic for the floor levels, and the yellow building has its own kind of staggered logic, which does not align. And however, it was really one building connected at one moment on the second floor. And that was really the challenge for us is how do we move this building into, a contemporary uh, condition that could be used for commercial use. And this is a photo of the completed project that just gives you a kind of preview of where we landed with this project in creating an addition that was in contrast to the existing heavy masonry of the building. But to get here, it required quite a bit of study and working very closely with the Historic Preservation Commission and other city officials, and of course our engineering team, GMS, Gil Sans Marie Stavicek, and Dresner Robin and EP Engineering. We all worked together to bring this building to completion. But we did have a look at historic photographs of the building, and we're reminded of the innovations that were really embedded in the A&P grocery. I mean, in itself, the A&P grocery was a visionary concept. It was the first grocery store, so it was the first of its kind to have all of your sort of needs in one place. And this building was one of five structures that made up the A&P complex in Jersey City. So there's other buildings related to this, but these buildings served as the bakery, and they were the first industrial bakery of their kind. And this building incorporated a number of engineering innovations. First of all, it was an early example of reinforced concrete construction. And there are some great articles that we were able to find in Engineering News Record about the reinforced concrete innovations here to carry the heavy loads of the bakery. And this image also shows ductwork that's crossing above First Street, which was delivering refrigeration to the bakery. So that was a really new thing of the time. There was also a horse ramp, which doesn't feel so innovative, but it was a solution for it was a fascinating element that went 6 stories up the building to bring horses into the building to deliver raw ingredients and products to 6 levels above. And then there was also a loading dock, which, if you think about, what was happening in 1908, automobiles were fairly new, and the whole concept of having truck delivery of groceries, that grandmother's bread was no longer made in grandmother's kitchen, but was actually made in an industrial bakery and then distributed regionally by vehicles, not horse-drawn carriages, is really kind of fascinating, but it's really what necessitated the loading dock. So the historic photos are funny. They actually show a lot of imagery of this loading dock, and the innovation of the truck. The delivery trucks are featured pretty heavily in the historic photographs. But the main challenge with this building, as I mentioned, was that, it started off as one building, but really they were quite separated and really only joined at one moment on the second floor. And the circulation was highly dispersed. All of the orange elements are showing the existing stairs, which moved people through the building, and those were all located at the corners. And then there were a series of shafts that are shown in red that moved, they were like dumbwaiters that would move, and a large freight elevator that would move ingredients up and down. The yellow is the highlighted is the horse ramp, as I mentioned the photograph before, and then the green highlighted area is the loading dock. But all of these elements being so kind of dispersed within the building, while they worked really well for an industrial bakery at the time, when we had to consider this as a new commercial building, we really had to rethink how circulation could work. And we looked at this two-story structure that was kind of connecting the two warehouses and affirmed with the Historic Preservation Commission that it was not a significant structure. So they actually allowed us to remove it. And because it was really kind of in an optimal spot for connection, but itself was obstructing our ability to do that. And this is where our intervention highlighted in green here is the addition that we inserted to concentrate the circulation elements at this central core and add a double height addition to what we call the yellow building and a fourth floor addition on the rear side of the building. And you can see that the addition is pulled back on the facade on Bay Street by a couple of feet so that it is really kind of secondary to the existing historic structure. And it's also set back on the fourth floor over the yellow warehouse so that it's not dominating the view of the building. And then we also, restored all of the existing windows and reopened existing openings that had been filled and created new openings. With the removal of the stairs from the corners, we were able to create new windows, which, it maintained, followed the rhythm of the existing windows, but were actually new. And the whole project was, the facades were totally restored as part of this. And this is a view of the rear side showing the loading dock and canopy, which were also part of the restoration. So the completed building, as I mentioned, one of the biggest challenges was that the floors didn't align. And you can kind of see that in the addition itself, that the new windows don't really align with either what we'll call the gray and red building or the yellow building, that they were already out of alignment. And so we decided that the modern addition would be clean lined. It would have a logic of its own that really related to how it would connect between the two buildings. And you can see the number 1 and number 2 call out this central core where we've located 2 egress stairs, 3 elevators, and the majority of chases that run through the entire building. And this section view shows this idea clearly where you can see the offset floors. So the elevator opens on both sides and kind of mediates that relationship. And then we have a few moments where we connect. And the finished photos of the project show, I think how we were, utilizing cowl wall, translucent cowl wall as a material that is commonly used in factories as a way to bring natural light into the building. So there was a kind of resonance bringing that modern material into this project so that there is a kind of beautiful glow that you can experience at the inside of the building, inside the addition spaces. And again, it really plays a kind of, it's set back and I think offsets and complements the existing structure well. This photo really shows that moment of slippage that it was kind of one of the challenges that we had. This is the beginning of the addition on this side, on the side facing First Street. This line here is where the new floor had to be located in order to align with what was happening in the yellow building. And it created this really interesting moment of a kind of clerestory window condition that allows natural light in at this upper level. But it really speaks to that kind of misalignment between the two structures. And we were able to highlight that and I think take advantage of that. The loading dock we demolished and rebuilt, and that was really to introduce ADA accessibility to the building because previously it could be accessed by horse ramp and horses, but the building really didn't accommodate people very well. So part of the evolution of the loading dock was for it to really allow people to access the entire first floor, and really now the entire building is ADA accessible, which we thought was really essential to making it a successful project. And the canopy was restored with a cowl wall, a translucent cowl wall, so natural light can come in underneath, and these commercial spaces accessed from the loading dock are still receiving natural light. This is a view from the inside of the addition above the yellow building. And we have some large accordion doors, which with clear glass frame the powerhouse as we look east towards Manhattan, another structure in need of attention and love. Hopefully it will get that soon. And this photo, I think we go back to this idea of density. I mean, this project in itself is not dense. It could not be dense. As a building itself, we densified the circulation at this central core as a way of allowing for flexible open spaces to serve a variety of commercial needs. But it's really at the center of the Powerhouse Arts District, which the redevelopment plan actually encourages a high level of density. But the historic nature of this building did not allow us to, build on top of it, residential or anything. So we're surrounded by very dense residential buildings. And what's great is actually that our project provides it provides an opportunity for commercial amenities to support the dense urban living that's surrounded immediately. And this view, I think, towards Manhattan really shows that the kind of density that we have surrounding and the importance of this project to anchor the historic district and also provide a new commercial center for the Powerhouse Arts District. The last project I'll show, we recently completed. In fact, we haven't, it is hot off the press completed. So first time I'm sharing this project publicly, but this is a carriage house that we transformed into an expressive living space that melds the aesthetics of modern street culture with original brick masonry shell. The project began in 2017, which is really hard to believe. We were asked by the owner, who was living there at the time, with his, it was a two-family. So the family was occupying both units. He was in one of them, and I was invited to think about how to convert this existing two-family residence into a single family. It was an existing carriage house built in 1901. And so it was a new typology for that period, designed to accommodate the current technology of the time, transportation of that time, which was horse-drawn carriages, which shortly after was overtaken by automobiles. And so this really served as a garage for automobiles, and so very current of the time. And it went under another transformation in the early 80s when it was converted to a two-family dwelling. And so it was, a kind of maze of dark spaces and staircases when we first encountered the project. The owner asked us to initially do a very simple kind of addition of 2.5 stories to this existing building. And he really wasn't interested in the facade or the kind of existing historic character. He was really looking to modernize it. It's not a landmarked structure. So, we looked at it with him, and this is a very early, it's kind of interesting because it's a very early rendering that we created of a concept that was really about creating an addition to the existing building, but um, adding a facade that would smooth over the kind of relationship between new and old. Um, we looked at the streetscape and, of course, the openings in this concept sketch and ultimately in what was executed are maintained. So the solid to void ratio, which is one that we often talk about when working on historic preservation projects, that's really important to maintain. So we were able to keep certain kind of structural features of the facade that were apparent on the street in the project. So this was a very, very early rendering of the project when things were kind of simple. And a zoning analysis showed us that, we were going to keep this as an as-of-right project. The red dotted line highlights the max building envelope and our base street height or our base height, building height at 65 feet with a small parapet. Um, and the image, oops, and the image on the right-hand side showed the relationship between the building addition and the existing building, which we would keep. And it was important to the owner to keep the existing structure, I think largely for an interest in one, economic factors, that this would be a more cost-effective way to execute the project. Um, and also a kind of sustainable agenda that, we would not be wasting material and demolishing. And, there may have been a time factor as well. And this is a diagram that we created as part of our permit set where we analyzed the existing structure that we were keeping, which is hatched in the diagonal, with new structural infill that we had to insert to infill the opening of the previous stair or certain areas of floor, and then, the new addition. But it was super important that we were able to maintain a higher, we needed to stay below a threshold of 50% to maintain this as an alteration rather than a new building under New York City Building Code, because otherwise we would have triggered a host of other requirements. And so this was a really fascinating project as we were juxtaposing antique wood joists and brick masonry with new steel C joists and CMU block. This image captures, actually, most of the interfaces weren't quite this clean. This was probably the cleanest image I could find of these conditions coming together, because it really was an interlocking of new and old. And then we had instances where we were keeping the existing brick masonry, but then we had areas where we were building new but needed continuity. And so we were salvaging brick from the project, having it cut down, and then laying it out on the floor to make sure that, we had the variation and consistency we were looking for. And this is a mock-up again showing the relationship between new and old construction, where we were preserving the existing brick and then building mock-ups to show how we were going to create continuity at moments with the new structure. The existing carriage house started off as a 4-story building. And again, this addition was very simple initially, except that the owner asked us, had a strong interest in street culture and specifically in having concrete floors throughout the project. So not only would the facade unify new and old, but all of the floors were to receive the same treatment, which would be concrete floors. And this wasn't a kind of ornamental concrete floors. These would be real 2.5-inch thick concrete floors. So that required us to introduce a great deal of steel into the project. And the yellow here shows the way that concrete floors were overlaid on top of both new and old, new and existing floor structure. And in order to support these concrete floors, we had to create steel cross bracing that would serve to reinforce and support not only the existing structure, but the new structure above. And we created a new elevator shaft as well that utilized steel cross bracing to support it, and a new stair that organized the interior, which was previously a maze of circulation. I'm just going to move a little faster through this. And so the completed structure fits well on the street. There's actually a number of modern townhouses on 22nd Street that have a similar kind of vibe, but we're very happy with how it turned out. And I look at the rain screen here is executed in a compressed stone. We have a window box that pops at the primary bedroom suite above, and all of the windows, the existing window openings were maintained from the original carriage house and continued in proportion above and framed in steel shadow boxes. This is a view of the existing building in 2017, and it was very kind of a hodgepodge. That tan area was an addition that had been done without a lot of thought. So we demolished that and proposed a new look for the rear facade, which was a kind of gradient facade treatment to the rain screen. So again, a rain screen that would be applied across new and old, but in this case, we were looking to use an ombre effect from bottom to top, from black to light gray, that would transition. And this was all fabricated at a factory, at the Cosentino factory in Spain. Took a great deal of research to work through what was available in their palette of existing compressed stone finishes, and how we could take those, they work with stone particles and basically 3D print it to create the panels, but it can all be customized. So we looked at a number of iterations of this to create the panels, and a very careful review of the shop drawings to study the attachment method to the new and old, as this system had to totally adjust to the variable conditions underneath. And then we saw photos of the full-scale panels as they were printed in Spain, and it's very hard to see the ombre effect in these individual panels, but there's a very subtle transition within each panel. They're all custom printed. And so this is a view of the completed facade, which it's funny because for the amount of effort that was put into creating this gradient effect, it's really only experienced from the backyard. It's not something that you can see from the street. So it's really, our clients enjoys it as well as his neighbors. And but the gradient effect was we were pretty happy with how that worked out. And the two-story window boxes, and then a pop of a window box at the gym above, creates a kind of graphic effect. I'll just run through these quickly. You can see how the steel cross bracing becomes a really important element in the space. It's structural, so it's supporting the new concrete floors, which you can see in this image at the ground floor, but it also is a kind of ornamental decorative feature. This is the double height space that we saw from outside through the large rectangular window box. The cross bracing becomes the decoration and the art. It's all very, the owner could have opted to cover it, but I think we were all very interested in this juxtaposition between the new structure and the existing masonry. And then we introduced some shelving to highlight the owner's art collection and skateboard collection, all in keeping. This is still under construction, so there's a ladder here, but we designed a perforated metal screen for the stair, which very cleanly passes through the space and in front of the brick. So it's always about juxtaposing new and old in this project, which I think was a very important feature. This image shows a view into the elevator shaft, which we enclosed in glass. And so we're exposing here the steel cross bracing. And then we worked with an interior designer, Megan Grell, on this project, who was terrific. And we did coordinate with an artist who painted the interior of the elevator shaft, which you can see with a kind of fun graffiti design. And the X cross bracing continues throughout the space. We can see it from the third floor, where it's a kind of graphic element. At the fifth floor in the primary bathroom, we did not reuse brick. We actually opted to expose the CMU block in this case and really frame the cross bracing with a kind of window in the primary bathroom. And then juxtaposing that with the very soft features of sculptural concrete bench and towel warmers and all of these kind of softer shapes to offset some of the harder elements. You can see the kind of, very Le Corbusier inspired bench in the bathroom. And again, the cross bracing. This is a view from the primary bedroom. And then up in the gym, again, the cross bracing returns. So this project was a lot of fun and first time I'm showing it. So we still will be, yeah, just looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I know I'm over time, so I'm just
Great.
going to stop
No,
there.
thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's okay. We do have a couple of questions. Let's try to get to them in the few remaining minutes. The first is Joseph Bianco. I think your AIA number will be noted. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. But if you have any questions, you can email us. And then we have a question from David Asher, which came pretty early on. What are the area of these micro units, gross square footage? And I think that was the first micro project you showed. He's asking about.
Oh, well, those are 220 square feet. So they were, and what was key to the design of those units is that they were single occupancy units. Um, so we were able to meet the minimum floor areas required and clearances, but they are absolutely as small as I think you can go.
Great. That's one. And then we have uh, a viewer named Michael Costantin who says he has a two-part question. I'm a Jersey City resident and am curious. So, question one, what street is your Superior Wall corner house? Probably
So
answer
that
that one
is
quickly.
yeah, the address of that project is 1 Minerva Street. It's at the end. It's right next to a small park, which I think it's called Arthur Ashe Park. And but that building is at the end of Minerva Street, which is a kind of dead ends into a public park. But you can find it. It's still there.
And then, second question, what are the exterior boxes featured in the Moxie housing project? I think they're shadow boxes,
Oh.
right?
Yeah, so those actually are storage in the units. So in that project, we inverted the idea of the window boxes that are at Nest. At Moxie, they are storage areas, and we use them as a way to create a shadow over the PTAC units. PTAC units are something that we wrestle with on many of our projects. We just, how do you incorporate them into a window assembly and make them look intentional? And in that project, we thought, if we put them under this projection, we could cast them in shadow and that would be a nice feature. We were happy with how that turned out. But yeah, that's great. I'm glad you asked.
Great, great. Okay, the next question comes from Robert Thomas, and I think this is a question directed again at the micro housing. What provision has been made in these buildings for full or part-time management? Are the residents involved?
I don't think the residents are involved in management. I think the idea of the micro housing buildings, they're geared towards people who are either well, they're geared towards, I think, very busy people, people that are out living in the city. You know, uh, they're they're in their unit to sleep or eat, but for the most part, they're out and about interacting with the community in the co-working spaces or in the gym or on the roof or out in the city experiencing city life. So that this really privileges those common amenities over the size of the individual living unit. And the other thing that's important is privacy. Uh, you know, these offer a kind of alternative to rooming with five other people in a large uh, four bedroom and sharing one kitchen. In this case, every unit has everything you need, albeit small. It's really geared towards someone who wants privacy and all of the kind of basic needs, but is okay with a smaller living space if they can access, larger community spaces.
Great. And we have a couple more coming in. We can stay on for a few more minutes
Sure.
if that works for people. So basically, one, Timothy Boyland, he writes, enjoyed the program. Thank you. So you got a kudos there. Next, Simone Panzeria writes, it appeared one of the projects was a single egress stair. If so, how is that cleared with AWJ? I'm not quite sure what AWJ is, but I guess question about the code, the egress code and how that works in the buildings.
If we're talking about the Berman town or the Chelsea townhouse, so that we actually had to create a fire separation at the fourth floor, which I don't have a photograph of that to share, but we did create a fire separation there. So that was one of the things that also drove the need to do a detailed floor area calculation. So we were doing an alteration rather than a new building, first of all. And then we also created a fire separation at the fourth floor, and enclosed. The stair actually stopped. So it is a continuous stair in theory, but there is a moment where there's a break. But
Great.
it does all, yeah.
Let's
That
try
was
to
a
get through
challenge.
a couple
Yeah.
more and then we're gonna, because we're over.
Mhm.
Charles Schwartzfeld writes, he writes, exciting townhouse project. Bravo. So you got another kudos there. Philip Kaminsky asks, are the microhousing units income dependent? Good question.
I believe that there were some of the units were designated as affordable housing. We were, um, but yeah, I don't know exactly the details of that arrangement.
Yeah, and I think the follow-up
Yeah.
is any idea what the rents are for these tiny spaces? If I recall, the idea is that they're market rate units, but given their compact nature, they are from a market point of view and square footage, they are more affordable. They are competitive in the
Right.
market and designed to keep certain people that have been priced out of a community like Journal Square living there. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. Yep. Yeah, you're getting more bang for your buck in a way.
Yeah.
So yes, they are more affordable.
Okay, great. And I think that wraps us. We're about 6 minutes over, so I'd like to thank everybody for sticking around. A couple of other questions about AIA numbers. As long as your AIA number was submitted when you registered for this session, you will get AIA credit for this. I believe this is HSW credit. And we're going to wrap, people. So thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you,
Thank
AIA
you.
New Jersey. And we will be back on July 15th with a lecture from Shajay Bhushan. Hope to see you then. And everyone have a great 4th of July holiday. All right. Be well.
Thank you.
Ciao.